I just want to say thank you to the listeners, the donors that give back to our communities all across the country, but specifically for Montgomery, Texas, home of the Texas flag. And this is Ed Ponigvar, and I have some folks that are going to be joining with me today on the phone in the name of the band founder, Joe Fioretti. And Joe Fioretti is going to share his story about the Montgomery Community Band and how it was started. And Coco is a participant on this call today, and she's going to represent an unsuspecting recipient of the power of art and what we do with music in the community and how it can fill your spirit. And she's going to express some of the things that she shared after one of our recent tributes that the band did for veterans in the community. And that was in 2024. And again, I'm Ed Ponigvar, the founder for Knowledge Point Network. And we underwrite the Veterans Tribute. It's kind of become a tradition for us starting this last year. And I wanted to give you a little bit of a history and a little bit of perspective. So we'll start and just kind of start this episode today and talk about how it all started in the spring of 2023 on a Sunday night, where I, as the founder of Knowledge Point Network, was in the auditorium. And at that moment, I was just simply supporting my wife, Tina, who plays both the clarinet and the bass clarinet for the band. And I was there, but I didn't really understand what I was about to experience. And, I want to share, what the experience was like with me. I had no idea how amazing that it was. And of course, the ladies listening to this would laugh because your men are out there, and I'm the classic husband in this experience where I'm completely clueless. And Tina often talks about the joy of being around, quote unquote, her people at her practices. And, I would just simply help her to set up for the clarinets quartet and for the community performances. And they called me a roadie from time to time. And I was just kind of going through the motions. But I just didn't really grasp the passion behind the music. And that night in 2023, with this band's military tribute, caught me completely off guard. And it was stunning. After the event, I asked my wife, why didn't you invite our other veterans to this event? And she just laughed at me. And she said, I tried to explain to you, husband, but you weren't listening. And that moment sparked a deeper involvement with the Montgomery Community Band through Knowledge Point Network. And it aligns perfectly with our mission to honor those who serve. Like many non-musicians, I didn't get it at first, but when it hit me, I vowed that 2024 was going to be something different, and we would be able to do something different for the entire community. And so that's kind of how I tee things, teeing this up, if you will. And so fast forward to 2024, and it was, such a great success. And I wanted to try to explain to donors why we give to the arts, and we'll uncover some of the hard work and the community spirit and the passion of what's happening. So with that said, I just wanted to say that the first, what I want to do is pitch it over to Joe Fioretti and ask Joe, to kick things off with you and ask you what inspired you to form the Montgomery Community Band. And I imagine in the early days, it must have been both exciting and challenging.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Thanks, Ed. So like you said, my name is Joe Fioretti. I'm the founder and president of the Montgomery Community Band. Basically started with I put a Facebook page out there. And this was like November of 2022. I actually have a degree in music education. I got away from that to, do some other things. I worked as a paramedic for a while. And eventually I just realized, I want to get back to playing my trumpet. And I was looking around at some other community bands in the area. There's some in Spring, Katy, the Woodlands, and all of them have been around for a while, and they're well rostered, and they really didn't need another trumpet player. And so I just kind of look at the map. I'm like, you know what? There's a lot of people in Montgomery. So let me just throw this out there. I made a little logo with a really simple flag and put Montgomery Community Band on it. Put a little form out there, and sure enough, I had 70 plus people fill out this form to play in this band that didn't actually exist yet. Wow. Yeah, so from there, start coordinate a whole lot of relationships with the school district and the city and get people out to show up and, get scheduled for that. All the paperwork is figured out, and I learned how to file a nonprofit, and we get all our people to come out for that first rehearsal in January, where I thought really it was just going to be me and like 2 people showing up late on a Sunday night at his high school. Turns out we had like 50 people showing up that haven't played. Some people we had some high school students. We had some people that have been professionally recorded, and we had some people that put away their instrument when Reagan was president. And so we all get together in this room and pretty much like we're all back in band class, able to make music and just enjoy the community of what this is.
That's amazing. I mean, when you talk about everything that you put together and you say it so nonchalant, you had to form a nonprofit. You put it out there on Facebook. You have this wide depth of experience, people that have been published and people that haven't touched their instruments in decades. And again, I'm right there, right with you. I mean, when I first went, I thought that the players were going to be dropping their instruments, and then it came out so wonderful and so beautiful that I was quite taken by it. But that passion really shines through. And Coco, I'm going to be teeing you up with this next question. So now the listening audience understands, how it got started, how it got launched. And then Coco, I'd like to hear from you, your perspective, that how you ended up in the room, and you can kind of take it from there if you wouldn't mind.
Well, I heard about it through the chamber meeting that they were having the concert, and I wanted to get my family together to go hear it. We used to go see my younger brother play in the marching band at Montgomery High School. And it was always so beautiful and such an experience. So when I heard about the Montgomery Community Band and that it was a free show, I told my family, we have to go. We didn't know what to expect when we got to the high school. We walked in, they had a table set up with American flag lapel pins and handheld American flags on the wooden sticks like you see at the parades. And so we each grabbed one and went into the auditorium. And what stood out to me the most was how many musicians were up on the stage and all the different instruments. I did not know what we were getting into. We found some seats, sat down, and I just knew it was going to be an amazing show.
So this is amazing. So you're taking it all in. You're in an auditorium, 250 seats in the auditorium, 60, 70, maybe 80 people up on stage. And you're like, what am I getting into? That's kind of where you're at with it at this moment. And then I heard through the grapevine, again, through this network. Now, you represent Texas Coffee News. And for the listeners, Coco is out there trying to have a publication to be out there in the restaurants to provide general awareness of the good things that are happening in the Montgomery County, Texas, Montgomery, Texas community. And so you're there in the audience. And I heard through the grapevine that someone in your family, observed a young man and maybe it was yourself that when they did the tribute for the Marines, could you share us a little bit about that? Because they went through and everybody stands that represents that branch of office that was a veteran when they play each individual tribute. Could you share with the audience what you experienced and saw?
Yes, thank you. They were playing the Armed Forces Salute, and they got to the Marine Corps song, and a young man sitting next to us with his parents stood up, and along with the other Marines in the room, and the audience was applauding them. And I looked at his mom, and I remembered my mom and all the emotions that she went through when my older brother joined the Marines, from the day he signed up to when he left for boot camp, and every time he would leave to go back to base after visiting. And I just was looking at that mother and thinking, she's about to go through all of those emotions with her son. He just looked so young, and he didn't know me and we didn't know him, but he signed up to protect me and my family and our country. Just felt so proud for him and his family.
And that was quite emotional for you to be a part of that. And I think that's what kind of struck me, is that I heard after the event, that some people were actually even rendered to tears in the audience. And that's really what I wanted people to understand. It's kind of a new evolution for me personally. I consider myself to be the rough and rugged, almost Viking persona. And, I have had tears come to hear performances. And so I'm right there, right with you. If the listening audience is ever confused about that, it's just an honor to see that tribute. and to see all those emotions evoked. And I think you described that very well, Coco. Was there anything else you wanted to add before I go to the next section?
I would like to say that I had forgotten how beautiful it was to be in front of a live band. And it was a night full of emotion. And I want to take my family to more events like that. And we have their next show marked on our calendar, and we're telling everybody about it. It was a beautiful experience.
Thank you. And, you're telling everybody about it, and it kind of leads to my next question, because again, in this role, I'm playing kind of both the host and also explaining for the audience. And I wanted to share with people, as I said earlier, I teed this up, and in 2023, I was quite oblivious. And then in 2024, we had made a commitment. And so for the listening audience out there, you have to kind of, again, reiterate, you come in and you are greeted by a group of veterans now. So I had members from the community, both civilian and veterans, that were there to welcome people when they came in. And we did the veteran tribute that you now heard Coco talking about. And then afterward, it's an awkward thing where you have volunteers that have been out in the community and they're begging people to come, and we're doing everything that we can. We printed off flyers. We go to veteran community events and encouraging them to come out. We really did a campaign, if you will, to try to get people in. And I would have to say it had to be 100% increase in veterans that came out to be appreciated. And then we're standing there at the end with the donation box. And we had set a goal. Knowledge Point Network provided $700, and I think that Joe might want to be able to get into some of the costs that are involved. But they had a rate of $700, and we wanted to double that. And so we stood there with the box. And although it was their, at that time, it was the largest amount that was raised for an event at that time, we still kind of fell short, right? So we wanted to provide $1,700. And we came in at $1,178, not quite where we wanted to be. But overall, we were elated that we were able to grow the participation in the people, in the bodies that received this inspirational sound, and that we were also able to solidify some additional donations. And so that's, what I wanted for our people that, that donate to Knowledge Point Network to know what we're doing with the funds and how we're getting people out there. It's really a holistic approach to being able to serve veterans and their families. It's a different approach, and it's an entry for people to get involved with other charities and other nonprofits. Joe, probably the listening audience would like to know, now that we're kind of going from the emotion of it and the qualitative into some more of the quantitative, would you be able to talk us through some of the real costs behind the organization for the concerts? And I know it's not just about, gathering up many musicians.
Sure, of course. Yeah, so fortunately, we are very blessed that the school district gives us a very good rate to use their facility for our rehearsal and our concerts. With that said, there are still costs involved with running this production. And we tend to do about 4 concerts a year, and each concert cycle probably costs us about $3,900, we estimate. That's including the cost of renting the auditorium for the concert night, renting all of the rehearsal weeks leading up to it, purchasing music, doing flyers and campaigns, as you mentioned. So all in, each concert cycle is about $3,900. Fortunately, we've been very blessed. The city has a Montgomery Economic Development Corporation, which has donated to us for the past 2 years in a row, as well as a member of this community has learned what we do and wanted to give back and provided a $10,000 donation to the band, which significantly helps us fulfill some of our priority costs. But through your help with Knowledge Point Network, like you said, that was our one biggest concert turnout, both attendance-wise and donation-wise, was from the veteran concert. And funds like that would help us cover some of those ongoing costs, allow us to cover some of our extra things that we want to do, not just our hard costs like facility rentals, but being able to do some more outreach. For example, later today, we're going out with about 15 of us to Chick-fil-A to try to raise some more awareness. Half of it's to raise funds for covering rehearsals. The other half is to raise awareness, because each concert we have probably about 300 people in the audience. And every time there's people that come up to me afterwards and they're just like, I didn't even know y'all existed. And so we want to make sure more people learn about us so that we could, have a more financial secure footing, but also just make sure the community knows that, hey, we're here, we're free, come out to a concert, provide support if you can.
Wow, that's really saying a lot, and it's interesting. Didn't even know that you existed, and it's been happening now for a couple of years. But I'm right with the listening audience. Even being a spouse of someone that plays in the band, and I've been so blessed with the opportunity to go and support and hear. And then that's why we underpin these things, and that's why we give back, for this very important aspect. And so as I start to wrap up, I'm going to ask myself a question that maybe some of our donors are asking, Knowledge Point Network, and why is it supporting the arts? We have a culture where we're doing stewardship in the community, right? And what we do is we provide purpose for veterans, both disabled and PTSD suffering, and we give them priority, but we also support active duty law enforcement, first responders. And these are the rough and the rugged type. These are the sentinels of society that go into danger, and that's what we stand here for. And it's like, why is the art? And I think that it's important for me to share to the audience that when we do these events for the arts, it invokes a portal. And I think this is as painful as it is to hear. I think it's important for the community to hear that I have had some veterans that have said that even looking into the eyes of their own child does not give them the solace to be able to continue, right? And everything that we do at Knowledge Point Network revolves around sustaining the parent, so for then the offspring are not affected, because we're all talking about self-harm and the veterans and these sentinels of society taking their own lives. And so we provide these venues where they open up, can bring in their entire family, and then everybody is involved. And it is a very therapeutic approach, and it's so vital and so very important. And it allows these barriers to be broken down. Quite frankly, we destigmatize the conversation around mental health by reducing the stigma of self-harm and talking about that. And that's really where we open up portals with this art that we're doing and supporting the band. And so I just wanted, to kind of start to wrap up and explain that and why it was so important. And, and you're describing it's the best thing that's happening out there in the community, and so many people are not aware. And all we can do is ask those that are inspired by this recording, by this podcast, that if you can share, if you can't be there on the days of the events, there's a variety of different things that are going on in the Montgomery Community Band where you can go and see the events, also on Knowledge Point Network. And then I think that we'll also see from Texas Coffee and News, right? We might have some additional flyers in a conventional sense in the restaurants. And so for our local community, now you can put a voice to the mission that's happening. And I want to call back out to, again, Coco or to Joe, if there's anything else that you want to add to it to put a cherry on top. But I think we're about ready to start to wrap up for this particular podcast. I'll go over to Joe. I'll ask you first, and then Coco, you can wrap things up. And what I'm going to be asking you, is there anything that we missed that you want to express? Now is that time. Joe, you go first.
Sure. Thanks, Ed. I think the biggest thing is just that, we want to be a place for the community to come either play music or listen to music. Concerts are free. The band has no dues. We want this to really be an opportunity that there's no barrier to entry, whether you want to play or just enjoy. Come on out.
Outstanding. Thank you very much, Joe. Coco, is there anything you wish to add?
I would just like to say I hope to see more folks out there. It was a wonderful experience, and I can't wait to go to the next one. And we'll do anything we can to help.
Sounds great. I certainly do appreciate it, and I want to thank each of you for coming on this evening's, taking the time away from your families and other events. And like we said at the beginning, Joe, you've got to jump in the car and get over to your next event over at Chick-fil-A, another one of your sponsors. And so we'll wrap things up and say thank you to each and every one of you, and thank you for all the listeners, all the support. It certainly is greatly appreciated. Thank you very much.